Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
San Diego County leaders continue to grapple with cross-border sewage pollution and its effects on South Bay communities. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. Today, the Board of Supervisors voted to continue a local emergency declaration over the environmental crisis. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says the county may expand a program that provides air purifiers to some households.
Imperial Beach resident Josh Okerman says the odor has been pretty bad the last few months.
Mostly in the nights, early mornings. Depending on the wind pattern, it's been shifting in. You can definitely smell it. It smells like it's probably not good for you. Earlier this week, scientists studying that odor reported dangerous levels of hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen cyanide in the area. A day later, San Diego County Supervisor Nora Vargas said the levels weren't an imminent public health threat. National City Council member Marcus Bush raised health concerns again today. He says he felt the effects firsthand when he visited the area yesterday.
Their monitors for hydrogen sulfide were beyond safe levels. I was there, I saw it, and more importantly, I know because I know my body, and I know what my body was telling me. My throat started burning after 30 minutes. It felt like acid reflux. I was there. My throat even still to this day, there's still a little bit of irritation.
Today, the county's Air Pollution Control District Board is getting an update on the investigation into odor complaints. They're also considering expanding a county program that provided air purifiers to some households.
But the filters isn't the end-all be-all. At the end of the day, we need to solve the root cause of the crisis, which is the sewage.
A bipartisan group of Congress members is requesting additional disaster funds to repair and upgrade the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant. They sent the request to congressional leadership today. They wrote that years of underinvestment have reduced the plant's capacity. Now they're asking for the highest amount of funding possible in any upcoming disaster supplemental package. Okerman says his community is ready for change.
I don't know what the state sees. I don't know what the federal government sees. They probably think of it as just some small little aspect that's not their problem. But ultimately, we got a community here that's at risk of unknown air pollutants and chemicals that are harming the body.
Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Meanwhile, Imperial Beach residents are taking the fight against cross-border pollution to court. A class action lawsuit filed last Friday claims Veolia Water, the private company in charge of operating and maintaining the wastewater treatment plant, failed to fix the malfunctioning facility. The lawsuit says that's resulted in a decrease in value of homes in the area. One of the homeowners told our media partner KGTV at first living in Imperial Beach was like a dream come true, but has since turned into a nightmare.
Getting up in the morning, walking down, hitting the stink about halfway past the, down the staircase, recognizing, oh, it's one of those mornings.
Once Veolia is served, it will have 60 days to respond to the complaint. The company released a statement saying it hopes the substantial repairs and expansion of the treatment plant will bring relief to the affected communities.
Tonight, our coastal low clouds return, and there could even be some areas of drizzle as you're headed out early tomorrow morning. How the forecast is changing into the weekend, I'll have that still to come.
The images are shocking as devastating wildfires intensify in parts of Southern California. The Bridge Fire is now the largest in the state, burning over 51,000 acres in Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. It has destroyed more than 30 homes and about 2,500 buildings are at risk. The nearby line and airport fires have also burned homes and forced people to evacuate. CAL FIRE crews from San Diego County have been deployed to help fight the flames. Mental health resources are scarce, and today Palomar Health broke ground on a new 120-bed facility that will bring much-needed services to the North County. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne says the facility includes help for our first responders.
120 beds for critical behavioral health services are coming to Palomar Health in Escondido.
When designing this 84,700 square foot facility, we were mindful that physical space has as much of an impact on the healing journey as the treatment programs offered within its walls.
Diane Hansen is the CEO of Palomar Health.
Once open, adolescent, adult, and geriatric patients will receive treatment surrounded by atriums, natural light, art, and pleasant furnishings, all fostering a warm, calm environment that promotes socialization and engagement.
She said the facility will offer a range of inpatient and outpatient services, but it will also offer a unique and in-demand resource.
For the first time ever on the West Coast, this state-of-the-art facility will offer Health for Heroes, a widely successful program designed to serve the mental health and substance abuse needs of active duty and retired military personnel, veterans, first responders, and healthcare workers.
For San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan, it's a priority to take care of the ones who take care of us.
Face the horrific images and things that they have to deal with, and they keep that all silent as they take care of the rest of us. So being able to have a compassionate place of healing in order to deal with sometimes addiction and co-occurring PTSD and other trauma that debilitates their lives.
But the needle on mental health resources in North County won't move just yet, because construction of the facility will take almost 2 years. The region is also still waiting on the 16-bed psychiatric facility at Tri-City Healthcare, announced in 2022 and expected to open in the fall. But Stephan says strides have been made to help those in need.
The North County often felt like the forgotten child of San Diego County when it comes to resources, but for the last 4 years, we have invested so much in the North County.
Already in place resources include one safe place in San Marcos and crisis stabilization units throughout the county. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
As the school year gets underway, elementary schools have a new mandate to give 30 minutes of recess every day. That's because of a state law that recognizes the importance of play for young children's growth. But KPBS's Corey Suzuki reports one factor is already complicating things: extreme heat.
As temperatures spiked across Southern California earlier this week, the staff at Perkins K-8 school in San Diego did the only thing that made sense. They ushered kids indoors and turned up the AC.
There's always the risk of heat stroke, dehydration, kids having headaches because they're not drinking enough water or just being out in the sun too long.
Perkins principal Fernando Hernandez.
They're like red in the face, they're sweating, they're drinking water, but they're still smiling and they want to keep on running. So we got to be very careful about, we have to watch over them because they don't necessarily watch over themselves.
Indoors, students are safe from the heat, but they aren't necessarily getting that unstructured recess time that's now required by state law. That's because it's a challenge to have kids play freely inside a classroom. Hernandez says teachers often have to rely on more organized activities like computer games, drawing, and painting.
The intent of the law to have free and unstructured time. Outside, very manageable. In a classroom, not as easily to implement, I'll tell you that.
Still, Hernandez is optimistic. He strongly agrees with the ideas behind the new recess mandate and is glad to see the state stepping in. He says Perkins will probably have to figure out a plan for recess soon, as climate change makes heat waves more frequent and more intense. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
There's another big shakeup in college sports, and this time San Diego State is part of the news. This morning, SDSU announced it will leave the Mountain West Conference for the Pac-12. The change will become official in the summer of 2026. 3 other Mountain West schools are also part of the move: Boise State, Colorado State, and Fresno State. SDSU President Adela De La Torre and Athletic Director J.D. Wicker say the move will elevate athletics and academics.
It is only fitting at this time for us to accept the mantle of where we need to be. We are a great institution.
Here we are with another opportunity, and, we're excited about this opportunity and how it's going to allow us to continue to grow our athletic department, to continue putting, world-class opportunities in front of our student athletes as, we work to give them athletic opportunities, academic opportunities.
SDSU President De La Torre says there are ongoing discussions to add at least 2 more universities to the Pac-12. Doing so would allow it to be a formally recognized athletic conference by the NCAA. Former President Donald Trump responded today to calls for a debate rematch with Vice President Kamala Harris, saying he won't do it. But it seems Harris is not giving up on the idea. Our Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook explores the question, what's next as we head toward November?
Following their first face-to-face meeting on the debate stage,
Kamala Harris.
Vice President Kamala Harris argued it showed the American people what's at stake in November.
We've got some work to do because, listen, I think that we think today was a good day, and it kind of was. But we have 56 days to go, and guys, we're still the underdogs in this race.
Former President Donald Trump worked the spin room after, claiming the moderators were, quote, very unfair. But he also believes it was his best debate.
It was my best debate ever, I think. And it was very interesting. It showed how weak they are, how pathetic they are, and what they're doing to destroy our country and the border with foreign trade, with everything.
Trump took to Truth Social on Thursday, answering the question, writing, quote, there will be no third debate. Meanwhile, we're still waiting to see if their debate performances will impact voter views. At a rally shortly after Trump's post, Harris continued to push, saying, quote, we owe it to the voters to have another debate. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
To encourage young Latino voters to show up on Election Day, the Chicano Federation held a voter registration rally at Southwestern College today.
1, 2, 3. Go Votes!
San Diego County is home to more than 479,000 Latino voters, including 150,000 aged 18 to 24. The Chicano Federation says their voter engagement campaign is an important opportunity to educate a new generation of civic participants.
The important thing is that we get out and vote. We as a Latino community need to be seen and understood as a strong and sustainable voting bloc. That is the only way that both parties will begin to court our vote and take up platforms that matter to our community.
16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote and will be automatically registered to vote on their 18th birthday. You can find out more at sdvote.com. Dogs are companions, sources of comfort, and guardians of sorts. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco explores how, for some women experiencing homelessness, dogs are also protectors on the street.
Oh, no, what is it? What is it? Who's out there?
This is Susan Castro and her dog Ralph. She's been homeless on and off for about 20 years.
Yeah, you did your job. There you go. That's a good boy.
Castro's 63. Every line on her face reveals a hard life on the streets.
Part of that is because I made some poor decisions, but part of it is my age and my health. I had domestic violence in several circumstances, and I had, had mostly like suicide attempts, and I was hospitalized 13 times in 9 years.
So that's a good thing. Ralph is a scruffy 6-year-old Norfolk Terrier. He's more than just a pet.
Yeah, he's my bodyguard, and he's my annoyance. He's just everything all wrapped up into one.
She adopted Ralph about 10 months ago, just a few weeks after her previous dog, Mickey, passed away.
I noticed right away that the first night I was just concerned. There's been times I've been scared, and I've walked around all night long.
Data shows that people experiencing homelessness in San Diego County face significantly higher rates of victimization. They are 15 times more likely to be robbed.
I sleep outside, and so I need to know if somebody's coming up close to me because it could be dangerous. And also, the dog makes them know, anybody that comes near me, that I know that they're there.
A recent survey of homeless women in LA County found that 35% reported being attacked.
Susan, so I met Susan here in Oceanside. She's been out to our events with Project Street Vet a couple times to get her dogs vaccinated and flea and tick medication, those kind of things. In the last event, she brought her new dog. It's her little baby.
Deputy Amber Sprague says having a dog, big or small, is important for women living alone on the streets.
What I've seen is that their animal is everything. They're willing to sacrifice going into housing or to shelters because they have their dog and they're not willing to leave their dog.
It's estimated that up to 1 in 4 of people experiencing homelessness have pets. Sandy Muskowski spent 2 years living in her car and on the streets with Isaac. He's a 60-pound pit bull mix. She credits him for protecting her life more than once.
So it was some rough nights, just a few times, fortunately. He knows, like, if I don't redirect him, that his job is to be the protector. And it's always really scary because I do know friends whose dogs have been stabbed. And I'm very fortunate. I never went through anything that severe. Obviously, I still have my boy.
Gillian Grace found her soulmate in Caboose. She says she adopted the loyal and protective husky mix after a bad breakup.
And it was like one of the worst relationships I've ever been in.
National data shows half of domestic violence survivors would not consider shelter for themselves without their pet.
We were living in an RV and a man began stalking me. He would try to break in all the time. So I went and got him and I never saw that man again. In just the initial sight of him. And he, for the last couple of years, has been just helping me heal.
Grace and Caboose are staying at Father Joe's Village. Many of San Diego's temporary shelters and safe parking lots say they're pet-friendly.
Like, I don't have a constant fear and anxiety all the time like I used to. Like, I can relax.
A 2024 Animal Welfare Journal study found that nearly half of homeless participants live with their dog in a tent or a vehicle. But some supportive housing options for people experiencing or at risk of homelessness require dogs to be certified as emotional support animals. That's what Susan Castro had to do for Ralph before moving into Greenbrier Village in Oceanside last month.
Outside, it's, you sort of keep on your toes. Being able to just go to sleep, just like so refreshing, it was safe.
After months of waiting, she's in her new apartment, and Ralph is getting some well-deserved rest.
Oh, he's been sleeping like crazy. He doesn't have to necessarily listen so good because I'm protected inside, I think that he feels a relief in that.
If you or someone you know are having thoughts of suicide, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Our county is full of little things that are often hard to explain to visitors. But as Ken Kramer shows us in this story about San Diego, sometimes the answer can be found in our history.
Ever wondered North Island? Island? It isn't an island, is it? An island, is it? So why do we call it an island? Why? Well, first let's take a look at some other islands that aren't. Harbor Island and Shelter Island, or for that matter, Coronado Island, which isn't an island either. It's connected to the mainland by a narrow strip of land called the Silver Strand. But North Island is a little different, and you wouldn't think so to look at it. So how, you might ask yourself, did it ever get to be known as an island? Because it used to be that it really pretty much was. Most people don't know that if you go back to any time before the Second World War, Coronado was there, North Island was there, and between the two was water. Look, here's a picture. The lower part is Coronado, the city, the Hotel Del, everything is down there. And separated almost entirely by water is North Island. With thanks to the Coronado Public Library for these, here's a photo of North Island taken in August of 1933. It really does look like an island. And see, here in 1925, there's just a little stretch of sand that connects the two, and in a very high tide or a storm, that would be underwater, and you really had an island, North Island. So much so that from out at sea, sailors would see what looked like 2 islands. There also was a bridge, a causeway that carried 4th Street over the water and onto North Island. Only back then, you were going over water, and that strip of water had a name. It was called Spanish Bight. B-I-G-H-T, bight, means a gradual bend in the shoreline that creates a shallow area of water. When came the Second World War, San Diego Bay was dredged and the sand was used to fill in Spanish Bight. And where once there was water, now there is part of the Naval Air Station. But the island name has remained, and if you've ever wondered why, go back 80 plus years and look at photographs or maps, and there is the answer and a bit of history about San Diego.
If you want to see more of Ken Kramer's stories about San Diego, his half-hour show can be seen tonight and every Thursday night at 8 here on KPBS.
As we look at this past week, we have obviously been coming down from the heat that was last weekend. As we head into next weekend, we're not going to be finding the same pattern. First up, the marine layer is deepening on us, and it does mean that as we head through tonight, there could even be some areas of patchy drizzle. So just be alert to that as we work our way out early heading into tomorrow morning. Otherwise, though, it's a standard September weekend as we talk about things being a little bit more seasonable than where we were last weekend. So some beneficial changes for us. And as we go into early next week, those winds will be bringing in some cooler air, but the important part here is that it's winds too, so we will be dealing with some potential for fire danger. As we look through tonight, again, 67 the low in San Diego. As you look towards Escondido, 58 degrees, 59 in Mount Laguna, fairly comfortable across the region as we transition into tomorrow morning. As I said, though, that marine layer is deepening. You'll notice its presence out there tomorrow morning, and will be maybe even working its way through some of our inland locations too, and towards some of the valleys there. As we get into tomorrow, throughout the day, still fairly quiet until that marine layer comes back into tomorrow night. So as we talk about tomorrow, not much going on here. 75 degrees, sunshine for your high. We're in the mid-70s there. Ramona coming in at 83 degrees, and Chula Vista 75 for the day. Borrego Springs near 100, which isn't too bad for us. Upcoming days, we do find that trend going down in several spots, but the coast staying relatively consistent here in the 70s. So that's going to be, again, fairly consistent for us. But you'll note if you get inland, there's that temperature drop from the low 80s today and tomorrow and the next day. Then as we get into Sunday, Monday, we start to fall through the 70s. And Monday, that's actually going to be our cloudiest day for us, which could lead to maybe a passing shower for some of our mountain locations. But overall, it's just a cool, windy pattern here as we drop into the 50s for our mountain communities and into the 80s for a lot of our desert communities early next week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Film Out is celebrating its 24th year as San Diego's LGBTQ plus film festival. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando has attended every one and has a preview of this year's festival, as well as another tasty offering.
The rewarding thing about being a loyal attendee of a film festival is that you sometimes get to see artists evolve. Benjamin Howard is a San Diego filmmaker who's been screening his short films at Film Out since 2017. And this year, his debut feature, Riley, will close the festival on Sunday.
We apologize for nothing.
So if you had told me back then, like, hey, you're going to make a feature and it's going to close out the festival several years from now, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are, and coming back home to San Diego, where we filmed, where I grew up. We shot a scene right outside of the Museum of Photographic Arts, which is where we're screening the film. In so many ways, it's very serendipitous and really special.
This year, I'm especially excited by the fact that programmer Michael McQuiggan has tapped into his love of horror to take advantage of the festival overlapping Friday the 13th and prompting him to screen an entire night of queer horror. The evening's first film, The Judgment, is about a man who returns to his Egyptian home and has to face ghosts from his past, as well as possible witchcraft intended to punish him for his gay lifestyle.
Even if it is witchcraft, You don't really believe in it, do you?
The film alludes to supernatural elements, but the horror is rooted in the real world and real prejudices. Next up in the queer horror lineup is Witchy Ways, brewed by Jane Clark, who drew inspiration from practical magic. And the night concludes with There's a Zombie Outside from Trauma alum Michael Verratti. Film Out runs through Sunday at the Museum of Photographic Arts, with plenty of film choices to tempt you. And speaking of tempting choices, a very different Friday the 13th option will be served up by Chef Philip Esteban for the San Diego Filipino Film Festival. His White Rice Bodega restaurant will be catering Magic Hour, a tasty prelude to the festival where attendees will get to sample Filipino food and get a preview of the film lineup.
We've been in partnership with White Rice with Chef Phil since day one, since we started the San Diego Filipino Film Festival. And food is very important for us because we share stories when we eat. For us, food is a cultural representation.
And it represents the diversity within that culture. Esteban points to how even a staple of Filipino food like adobo reflects variety within the community.
A lot of people think even just adobo as well is chicken adobo and or pork. But technically, there's 152 ways to make adobo. But there are just so many different areas and so many different regions that make them in so many different styles.
And that just means having many unique flavor variations to choose from, just like with the cinematic offerings you have this weekend. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Feast for the eyes and the palate. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trevis Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.